Have you ever wondered what life is like for an earthworm? Well, they don't exactly have it easy. From dodging sunlight to feeling the heat, from being exposed to chemicals to searching for comforting moisture. Earthworms face challenges every day. Welcome to AOA. You are now watching Earthworms versus the World.
Day in the life of a UPM student, Stimulating Earthworms Edition.
But wait, before we dive into the action, let's take a step back. Why exactly are we doing this experiment? We're doing this to better understand how simple organisms like earthworms react to their environment. They're incredibly sensitive. It's not just about worms wiggling around, it's about survival, adaptation, and behavior in the natural world. Any external or internal change that triggers a response is called a stimulus. The ability of an earthworm to react to these stimuli is called irritability, and their movement towards or away from the stimulus is known as taxis. In this experiment, we'll observe how earthworms respond to different kinds of stimuli, namely contact, light, heat, moisture, and chemicals. By the end, we'll identify which parts of their body are the most sensitive and how they navigate these challenges. You can try and do this with us. You need to prepare the following materials: a dissecting pad, a damp sheet of paper, a dissecting needle, a cardboard with a hole in the center, a flashlight, a lighter, a candle. Xylene is the chemical for the experiment. But if you're gonna do this at home, you may just use vinegar as an alternative. And of course, you should not forget active and live earthworms. Now that we know the background, objectives, key concepts, and materials for this experiment, let's see how these earthworms face their challenges. First up, contact. Using a dissecting needle, we gently touch different regions of the earthworm's body. Which part will be most sensitive? Earthworms move in soil through burrowing by contracting their bodies. When they are in direct contact with something that does not feel like soil, they can contract to change direction or in some cases even retreat to avoid potential threats. Their response to contact is called thigmotaxis. When a foreign object like a dissecting needle is pointed gently on the different regions of an earthworm, varying responses can occur depending on the sensitivity of each region. When the earthworm was touched directly on either end, the earthworm contracted and then moved away from the needle. But when the worm was pointed on its middle region, both ends of the earthworm twitched. Then the worm proceeded to move away from the needle, exhibiting negative thigmotaxis. In general, the anterior end of the earthworm is more sensitive to contact compared to other regions as it helps them to react quicker when in contact with a foreign object. Next up, light. We shone a small beam of light through a 2mm hole on different parts of the earthworm's body. Do earthworms prefer the darkness or will they face the light? Earthworms prefer dark, moist environments and are naturally inclined to avoid light exposure. This behavior aligns with their need to avoid predators and remain in cool, damp soil, where they can maintain moisture and avoid drying out. When light is directed at various parts of their body, you can imagine it as if you suddenly encountered a bright flashlight in the middle of the night. You'd instinctively turn away to find the darkness again. Light stimulates the sensory receptors in the earthworm's skin, prompting a movement response. This behavior is known as negative phototaxis, where the earthworm moves away from the light source to seek a darker, safer environment. This reaction helps them stay protected and avoid conditions that might dry out their bodies. When light is applied to different regions of the earthworm's body, specifically the anterior, middle, and posterior, their response may vary depending on the sensitivity of each region. While earthworms will generally move away from light regardless of which part is illuminated, their reaction is often faster when the light is directed at the anterior. This is because the anterior end, which contains the nerve clusters and sensory organs, is more sensitive to environmental changes, including light. The middle and posterior regions may show a slower or less intense reaction compared to the rapid response from the anterior end. Well, how about heat? We place the worms above a lighted candle to see how they would respond to rising temperatures. Will they stay put or move away? Earthworms are sensitive to temperature changes as they need a moist and cool environment to survive. When heat is applied to different parts of their body, you could expect them to move away from the heat source. Exactly how you, my friend, a human being, would react if an active candle was drawn closer to you. The heat stimulates the sensory receptors on the skin of the earthworm, which detect changes in temperature. In response, the earthworm will likely demonstrate negative thermotaxis, a movement away from the heat source, to avoid damage or dehydration caused by the increased temperature. Regardless of which part of the earthworm is exposed, it will move away from the heat source, as avoiding excessive heat is crucial for maintaining moisture and preventing injury. However, the speed and direction of movement might indicate which part is more sensitive. Typically, the anterior end housing the earthworm's central nervous system and sensory structures is more sensitive compared to the other two regions. For moisture, we place the damp tissue on half of the dissecting pan and place a dry sheet of yellow paper. We then place the worms at the center and observe which side they prefer. Earthworms prefer to be in a moist and wet environment, as this prevents them from drying out. They rely a lot on being in a damp environment as they breathe through their skin. When they are in the risk of desiccation or drying out, they may move to wetter areas to retain their moisture. Like the other stimuli, moisture is also detected by sensitive sensory receptors on the skin of the earthworm, which can induce a response called hydrotaxis. In the presence of moisture, the earthworm may exhibit positive hydrotaxis, moving towards the area that is more damp to keep them moist. When the earthworms are subjected to different areas of varying moisture levels, the sensitivity of each region to moisture may vary. Compared to the other areas of the earthworm, the anterior end is more sensitive to moisture changes as it helps the worm to move faster towards a more favorable environment. Lastly, chemicals. By bringing a saline dip rod near the worms, we'll see how they react to a chemical stimulus. Earthworms are sensitive to the presence of chemicals in their environment. When they are in the vicinity of a harmful chemical, they tend to move away from the source of that chemical. This phenomenon is called chemotaxis. Chemoreceptors on the earthworm's skin can detect chemical signals in the soil. These chemoreceptors allow earthworms to navigate their environment, whether in the presence of food in the form of organic matter, drawing them towards the source, or harmful chemicals like saline or vinegar, making them move away to avoid potential threats. Again, since the anterior region contains more nerve endings and sensory receptors compared to the other parts of the earthworm, a faster response can typically be seen when a harmful chemical is exposed to the anterior end of the earthworm. This experiment is significant because it helps us understand how earthworms respond to environmental stimuli, showcasing their irritability and sensitivity. By testing different body regions, we can identify which parts of the worm are most responsive and observe their movement toward or away from stimuli, illustrating the concept of taxis. Using diverse stimuli like contact, light, heat, moisture, and chemicals explore how organisms perceive their surroundings, highlighting essential biological principles. This hands-on experience enhances our understanding of behavior in living organisms and promotes critical thinking. All in all, what did we uncover in observing the reactions of these earthworms? Through our DIY experiment, we have seen how these seemingly simple creatures respond to contact, light, heat, moisture, and chemicals. They exhibit negative thigmotaxis, negative phototaxis, negative thermotaxis, negative chemotaxis, and positive hydrotaxis. Through these responses, we learned more about irritability and taxis, showing a representation of earthworm survival instinct when faced with real-life situations. By targeting different anatomical regions, we learned that the anterior end is the most sensitive, being the location of their central nervous system packed with nerve endings and receptors, which is key to their observed reactions to different stimuli. So, what can we learn from creatures so small yet so finely tuned to their environment? In every movement, every response, earthworms show us the instinct to survive. They remind us that life, no matter how simple or complex, is constantly reacting, adjusting, and evolving. So, the next time you see an earthworm burrowing through the soil, ask yourself, what does it take to thrive in a world full of challenges? And what if we also embrace the art of adaptation? What kind of world could we create? This was AOA. Thank you for watching Earthworms vs. the World.